2024 was a really solid year for video games. It had its ups and downs, especially with all the layoffs, but if you're a gamer, you probably had your hands full with new releases to play. And with 2025 looking absolutely stacked, that probably won't be changing anytime soon. Anyway, I've always wanted to do one of these, so here are my games of the year for 2024. Coming across Until Then was one of those happy little accidents that Bob Ross used to talk about. I just happened to be scrolling the PSN store and its beautiful sprite work caught my eye. This game is an auditory and visual delight. The sprite work and soundscapes transport you to this game's version of 2014 in the Philippines. Scrolling through Facebook, reading articles, nervously retyping text as you find the right words to say to your crush, it's super nostalgic. And while I don't think the narrative ties all its loose ends by the time you roll credits, the characters more than make up for the story's shortcomings. You'll want to see these goofy teenagers succeed. I don't play visual novels too often, but I'm glad I picked this one up. I actually have some major gripes with this game. The open world is filled with a lot of uninteresting and monotonous activities. The story kind of starts teetering on complete nonsense towards the end, and worst of all, they kind of ruined one of gaming's most iconic story moments. Ordinarily, those faults would kill a game for me, but credit where it's due, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is still awesome. Combat is somehow even more fun than Remake thanks to the synergy skills, and while it did get some important parts wrong, it got a lot of them right. The way Yuffie and Vincent are weaved throughout the plot rather than being optional like the original game was a clever move. I loved everything about Costa del Sol, and Barrett's backstory hit right in the feels, I'm not gonna lie. And while yes, many of the open world activities left me feeling whelmed, they did feed back into many of the game's core systems in a satisfying way, and not all of them were bad. Proto-Relic quests were my favorite, and I really enjoyed Queen's Blood until I started suffering from some kind of a skill issue. I don't know what was up with that. Some of the side quests were pretty entertaining too, but most of all, seeing the world and events of Final Fantasy VII fully realized in such a spectacular way has been delightful as a longtime fan of Cloud and the gang. What's there to say about Astrobot at this point that hasn't already been said? It's pure whimsical fun. There's a reason it's gotten so much acclaim and won big at the Game Awards. Astrobot is a beyond competent 3D platformer with excellent level design, wonderful cameos, and Team Asobi is still supporting it with free updates, adding even more bots to collect. If you still haven't played Astrobot yet, what are you doing? This little guy is already PlayStation's newest mascot. Not to rehash too much of what I said about this game in my recent video, but metaphorrefantazio was an unforgettable experience. Every aspect of this game comes together harmoniously, which is apt because at its core, Metaphor is an incredibly human story about putting aside our differences and coming together to change the world for the better. It's a game that had me pondering its many themes from equality to democracy throughout, all while delivering on challenging but satisfying combat along with a complex archetype system. To me, Metaphor is among the top of Atlus's output and is one of the very best JRPGs I've ever played. Also, Hulkenberg is best girl and Alice should be ashamed of themselves for not allowing me to marry. Before we get to number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash was a very mixed bag, but I did still find myself coming back to it throughout the year just to have fun playing with my bros. I really do hope this game gets a sequel that's better in basically every way. It seems to have sold decently well, and Jujutsu Kaisen is just as popular as ever, so we'll see where the future holds. I didn't actually play that much of Tekken 8, but I did play through the story mode, and I absolutely loved it. There's some peak moments in there, and spoiler alert, I guess, Angel Jin, we need that as a character like ASAP. Multiverses was a game that I kept playing a lot this year. I love Super Smash Brothers, and I think a lot of the characters in Multiverses are pretty cool. They have had a very rocky start and follow through, honestly, and I don't really know what's going to happen with it in the future, but I hope it keeps going for a while because I think they could have something special here. Nobody Wants to Die was a very surprising and random game that I played this year, but it was pretty cool. I like the story a lot. I love the setting, the aesthetic, and I think this was a first time game for the studio, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. Stellarblade. Oh, Stellarblade. You kind of almost made the list, but there were just a few games that edged you out. While I've gone over my problems that I had with this game, I kind of look back fondly on it. The story was a mess and the characters suck, but that gameplay was pretty fun, and I think the lore is pretty cool too. Stellarblade 2, which is definitely going to happen, will probably be a banger. And finally, for number 1. Metaphor may be one of the best JRPGs I've ever played, but Persona 3 is the best game I've ever played. It's my favorite game of all time, and after playing Persona 3 Reload, my feelings are even more vindicated. Reload addresses many of the original game's criticisms and enhances the game in many ways. Being able to rewind days is somehow something I never knew I needed. The game being fully voiced, breathes new life into some of my favorite social links, and some of the new music is unreal. It's not just features either. Strega is more fleshed out by having a stronger on-screen presence. Combat is made even better with the busted but fun theurgy attacks. Tartarus is kind of awesome now thanks to Monad doors, and dorm hangouts give you more chances to interact with your favorite party members. The Persona team somehow made all of these additions while still staying faithful to the characters I fell in love with and the beautiful story that moved me at such a young age. The Persona 3 experience is still fragmented between different versions, with some characters being in one and mechanics being in another, and yeah, if it were up to me, I'd have put everything in Reload. A singular definitive version of Persona 3 with all it's had to offer in one package is what I've wanted for years. But I can't lie and say I wasn't more than satisfied by the time I heard Memories of You playing on my TV once again. If you still haven't played Persona 3, at this point you're doing yourself a disservice. It's so much more than just a video game to me. And that's why Persona 3 Reload is my game of the year for 2024. Thank you so much for being along for the ride for my first year of YouTube. I've got some fun things planned for the channel in 2025, so stay tuned. Anyway, new year, new catchphrase. Sleep tight, everybody.
Things